And we have May for the first episode. I am so excited. I feel like I haven't seen you in like, what is it, 6 years? We met in
Yeah.
college. And I feel like you were a senior or a junior and I was a freshman. Yeah. I think that's
No,
when
no, surely not. We're like, when did you graduate? 20?
2020.
Okay, so 2 year. We had a 2 year gap. I graduated
Okay.
in 2018. Yeah.
Got you. Got you. So, yes, I've known you. I know you from FDU. We went to the same college. And it's funny because the fencing team and the track and field team, we would practice at the same time. So, I know a bit of the track and field people. But for anyone who wants to know you, tell them about you.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here on the podcast. So yeah, my name is May Thompson. I'm from the UK. I'm based in London. I'm a former D1 athlete, as you said. We went to FDU together, which was longer ago than I like to think. I feel like I was just there yesterday, but it was a little time ago now. My sport was track and field. I was a sprinter slash mid distance runner. I sort of played around with a couple of different events. When I graduated, I returned to the UK for my master's and I ran for one more year over here and then I quit. I walked away from track and field just before lockdown, actually. Um, and I now would call myself a recreational runner. I've gotten into sort of more long distance races. I'm currently training for the London Marathon in April.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, it's exciting. Very different to sort of track life, but I'm also a human rights activist. So, sort of by day, I work for a human rights organization working on international law, mainly in the Middle East and North Africa region. And yeah, I. What else do you
Yeah.
want to know?
No, that's so good. And I think for me, one question that I always think of and I never really ask for the international students, like, why did you choose like coming to America and running instead of like staying in England or Europe in general? I just thought of that. I was like, wait, how did you even decide? Like, was that a part of your like one of your goals as a kid? Like, I want to run for like a American college, or you were just like, okay.
Yeah, it's a really good question actually. So I had no idea really about the US college system. Obviously, in here in the UK, we watch a lot of like American movies, so we know that sports is like a big deal, but not really having any idea of how the system works. So I sort of grew up running track. I joined a club when I was 10 or 11 years old. The system in the UK here is very different. So rather than like running for your high school, you like join a like independent club, normally just like whichever one is most local to you.
Hmm.
So I joined the club when I was 11. And when you're younger, like there's so much less pressure than in the US, right? I feel like in the US, people have kids and from like one or two, they're like, okay, you're going to learn and do this sport. And
From the womb, from
yeah,
the womb.
exactly. Whereas in the UK, well, this was my experience at least.
Hmm.
I feel like things are a little more relaxed. Like when we would go to the athletics club at the younger age, it was more just like try out the different disciplines. So I did, throws, I did javelin, shot put, jumps. Obviously, of course, some sprinting, I did cross country when I was younger as well. So it was just something that I love to do. Like I've always
Hmm.
loved to run. One of my like earliest memories of running is I'm a twin, and my mum took me and my twin to the park, like to the like children's play area, and instead of going
Hmm.
on like the slides and the swings, we were like, "Can we just run across the field?" And she was
Oh.
like, "Yeah, if you want." So we would run like all the way to the end of the field, turn around, sprint back, and that's just what we loved to do. So then the early days, when I was sort of yeah, 10, 11, 12, it was just fun. It was a place that I would go after school to hang out with my friends and to try all these different sort of disciplines. And then as I got older, so you sort of start to specialize a little. So I found what I was good at and started doing quite well. And I think, and this hopefully will come to this, but this ties into, I think, where perhaps my relationship with running went wrong. So in my sort of formative years when I was a teenager, when I was having success in track, people would go, wow, like you're really good at that. Like I would get so much praise from being successful in running. So I started to maybe equate success athletically with like being a good person or being a successful person or
Mm,
people love me or value me because I'm good at this thing. But I'll park that for a second to go back to why I
yeah.
came to the US. So yeah, the British system is very different. We have this sort of program, I guess, called UCAS, which is just where you can apply to lots of different schools and you write this one sort of personal statement and it gets sent out to all the different schools and you apply specifically for courses. And so like, for example, I don't know, biochemistry or like it's very specific. Um,
Mm,
and I just had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew that I loved running. I was interested in a couple different subjects, but I really didn't know. Um, and because I'd been quite successful, I was like running at a national level at that time. I had just got a letter in the mail one day from a recruiter saying, "Hey, did you ever consider going to college in the US? You could probably get a scholarship. Like, obviously that's how they earn their money, but like you then pay them to help you get recruited." But I was just like, wow, that seems like really cool, really interesting. And as well, you didn't have to like, stick to a particular program. You just apply to the school and then you can even start your freshman year as like
undecided.
undecided. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And then I ended up doing humanities as a degree, which is so broad. Like I did all different types of classes, different types of subjects from like political science, religion, philosophy, but I also did like math and physics and I did an astronomy class, but also I got to do like painting classes and yoga
Yeah.
and like it was so diverse. So in the end, I think it worked out really well. And of course, getting that opportunity to compete at a D1 level was it's like on a whole different plane to in the UK. Like we have nothing. Like I would say not even our professional scene is on the same level as like NCAA. So the amount of
Yeah.
even the fact like getting scholarships to do track and field doesn't exist in the UK. So the fact that I was able to get a scholarship and then also, you know, have so many resources. Like we had our own indoor track. We could see the trainers every day. Like it was literally like being a professional athlete. Like it was really an opportunity that I just think was not available on this neck of the woods.
You brought up so many things. The first thing that made my mind like explode was I didn't even know you had a twin. What? What?
I can't believe you didn't know this. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we grew up running together actually. Like even there's some really cute pictures like in the when we were much younger, we would like run across the finish line like holding hands and we were
Oh my
training partners and
gosh.
yeah. So
No, that's cute. Okay. All right, now I need to see that photo because
yeah,
that
I'm
sounds so cute. I'm like, what? I didn't have a twin. And I didn't know you had a twin. That's like interesting. Okay, the two things that made me um that I wanted to ask you about. One, you talked about this passion that you had as a kid, right? You and your twin. How you felt like this, it was fun, right? You doing this thing with your twin, or maybe not all the time, but it's like this passion that you had, right? And I want this episode to kind of be like a love letter to yourself in the future when you hate running and you're like, oh my God, like this is so annoying. And you go back and you're like, wow, okay, I want to have those memories of me and my twin doing this thing, or like when I first fell in love, right, with track. But also for anyone else listening, like when you do feel like what you've worked for so many years or maybe decades of doing this one thing and it's just not going right, just thinking about all of the memories um, that you had that were really good and the reason why you still push on, right? And you have this really really cute reel on your Instagram where you kind of like give like a talk to your baby self, right? And you have a caption and it says, I've learned more about running in the past few months than in my entire career as an athlete. Falling back in love with it has been the greatest joy. And this is me, right? I'm looking at you, your baby self, and you running, and I'm like, this is so cute. Like I'm gonna cry. So my question for you is, what have you learned? Because you talked about this, like, and I could see like the joy in your face of like baby May running, me and my twin doing this thing together, and then you kind of go into like just doing or succeeding because of this praise or because of like if I don't do well, I'm not a good athlete or I'm not a good person. So what have you learned about running in those last couple of months, or now that reel was like last year, so like what have you learned in that time and now that made you love running?
Mm. Yeah, I think, and I'll just maybe give some context to what
Mm-hmm.
sort of happened before I fell out of love with running, like what led to that. And I think
Yeah.
it was, so yes, what I was talking about before with like I put so much, I really started to tie my identity and my performance and my success um, together. So yeah, I was really feeling like if I have a bad day, then it's not just okay, a bad performance and I shake it off. Like it was so internalized that I'm such a failure, and it felt so like existential. And I think as well, like when you're, when you're in college, you're still young, so it's much easier, I think, to really fixate on this one thing. But also, being inside the D1 college system is so intense. And I don't think that I had anticipated that or was prepared for that. Like, it became my job. And I think, like, this is a common thing. This isn't personal or unique to me. Like, when you start doing something, either it's a sport or a hobby, or like you turn something into a business, like, as soon as it starts making you money, um, you kind of lose the love of it, you lose the joy in it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that absolutely happened. Like training was so hard. Like we were training 6 days a week. We were competing
Ooh.
every weekend. So I ran like the 400 hurdles, the 400 flat, and the 800 meters. At some points, I even went up to the 15 and the mile. In my opinion, those are the hardest events. Like, I was not every day I was turning up to training, and you said rightly, right? We trained at the same time. You saw us
Mm-hmm.
dying. You saw us
Yeah.
running around on the
Yeah.
floor every day, and I was like, "Yo, this is not
Wait.
fun."
Wait, pause for context. For context. No, I'm laughing because in my opinion, my college experience, like fencing wise, like the college, like not because I was doing collegiate fencing and then national fencing as well. It was fun in college, right? So we would we would show up every day and we would hear Coach Charlene just yelling at you guys, and I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm having a good morning.
yeah,
I know they're
yeah.
not.
Yeah. I remember once
So
someone on the softball team said to me like, "Hey, like we only have to run like as a punishment, but you guys are doing it like every day." I
our
was like,
coach, no, our coach would tell us like if we had a really bad competition, he's like, I think you guys should have a practice with the track and field team, and I'm like, no,
yeah,
we're
like
not
it really,
doing that.
and it was not. So it was super intense, and also there was just so much pressure to do well, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, and maybe things have changed since the time where I was running. I hope that there's been some improvements since, but there seems to be no real care for like the mental health of your athletes, or the
Mm.
well-being of your athletes. It was, are they running fast? And that was the most important thing. And I think I
Oh.
like, so the college cycle is 4 years. By my third and fourth years, like I was, and I'm not sure, like my team was definitely aware of this, but maybe outside of my team, people weren't aware of this. But I was like having panic attacks and major anxiety every time before I competed. Like I would be in
Mm.
tears regularly at training and at competition, just so anxious because I knew it was going my event is it hurts and it's painful. So I'm not looking forward you say I was running the 800, right? I'm not looking forward to this next 2 minutes of my life because it's going to be painful for the whole time. And B, what if I don't win? Because I kind of
Mm.
set this precedent for myself. We went to a relatively small school, so we were the both of us like were quite big fish, right? So I started winning championships and doing well. So then people have this standard like, oh, of course May's gonna win. And it just became, yeah, it was just not a healthy or good experience for me. Like I was
Yeah.
constantly, yeah, in this state of anxiety. I was miserable. You'll see like any pictures of me at any conference, championships, or any race really, you will not find one picture of me smiling. Like even
Oh,
after I win, I just look relieved. Like there's no, oh, I'm happy that I did that. It's just, oh,
I'm
phew.
happy it's over.
I'm glad it's over and I did it. I did what I was meant to do. Um,
This is I want to like this is not where I wanted to like have the podcast go, but I feel like this is even better, right? Because what you are explaining to me, like what your college experience was, is my like after, or I guess you can say my
mm,
professional fencing
mm,
experience now. Not necessarily with the panic attacks, because I definitely feel like this is the best my fencing has ever been, just because our coach is like you said, it's not, oh, are you feeling well today? It's like, no, a champion, there is no I'm tired, there is no points of weakness. I
mm.
really don't care unless you present a gold. Then you might like, I guess the way that I'm looking at it is, and again, I feel like I'm very lucky because I have a coach that, like, if there really is like a problem, like he's very understanding. But for him, it's like you earn your respect through your results, right? But for me, I think I guess what I'm trying to think of is, if you had that same level of training, right? But now that you're older, right? Because I think the training that I'm doing now, if I was like 20 or like 18, I would probably be like, I quit fencing.
Mm,
Like, this
mm,
is too much.
mm,
But also, you're dealing with school stress as well. So
mm.
I'm trying to think, like, do you think you would have those panic attacks and those anxiety or anxious moments now that you're this age? Or was it like, what do you think it was?
Yeah, I think age is definitely related to it, but also, yeah, I think I'm like, I've got a bit of a nervous disposition anyway. Like, I've never had
What?
anxiety. I never had anxiety, but I think my default is like just to be nervous and to work really hard. I was the same like with exams in school or
Mm-hmm.
whereas I know and I see really successful track and field athletes. I see that like branch of them, but also this other branch that is just confident. I know 800-meter runners who love the 800. Like they're few and
Mm-hmm.
far between, but they're like, yeah, I love the pain. I love the grind. I love it's hard. I want to go to the championships because I know I'm going to win. And I just didn't have that. And I think even now that I'm older, I probably still wouldn't have that. I think what I would have
Mm.
is the ability to separate my athletic performance from how I how I speak to myself and how I value myself. And I think when you're like when I went to college, I was 18, I was on a whole different continent. So I really attached myself to my coach. Like she was not just my coach, she was this mother figure. And I thought, okay, like she's here and I'm a people pleaser. I like to say I'm like a recovering people pleaser because I'm trying to work on that. But
Yeah.
all I wanted to do was to please her, and I knew that the only way that I could please her was to run fast. So
Mm.
we got into this. like, and I don't want to go into too many details, but like we got into this relationship where I was constantly like chasing her approval and her praise, and she wasn't always giving it back to me. So then that, I feel like our relationship just became like it was having such a negative impact on me. And I think I, in my younger self, really allowed other people's opinions on me, whether that be a coach, a friend, a family member, whoever, like dictate how I felt about myself. Um, so if even if I knew that I was working hard and I tried my best, if someone else was telling me, well, no, it just wasn't good enough, I'd be like, oh yeah, like it was me,
Mm.
they're right. But I think now that I'm hopefully a little bit wiser, like and this is what I'm learning right through this now journey that I'm on to rediscover what running can offer me, and like really trying to rekindle this relationship, is that I can listen to my body and I can respect myself
Hmm.
for my best effort on the day. And as long as I can be proud of that, if it's not a medal winning performance, like me now doing the marathon, I'm not anywhere near on the elite level. But
Yeah.
if I can train with like integrity and discipline and still try my best, then I have something to be proud of. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
That is so beautiful because while you were speaking, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm still thinking like, what's the difference between my college experience and my experience now? And what's like, how did you have such a anxious experience, right? Like, why was that your response to such high level training? Because like I said before, I feel like the training that you guys are doing or that you guys did before, like in college, is my experience now. And you said it, like for me, of course I want to like, make my coach happy, but for me it's not like, oh, I'm fencing or I'm doing this result to put a smile on your face. For me, if he's upset,
This
that's
is
you.
exactly it.
And
Yeah.
no, and it's so funny because I remember there was this competition and I thought I did so, yeah, I thought I did well. I know I did well, period, right? And
Yeah.
I remember I hate when he sends voice notes because it's like, sir, like I could, when you're texting, you don't hear the yelling. Like, you can guess your own tone of the person. I hate when he sends voice notes. And my coach, he's like yelling at me, like, how can you let this like 18-year-old girl beat you? And I'm like, well, I know I did well, so keep
Yeah.
sending them voice notes because that's just how I feel. And I think, I mean, one of the lessons to, and I know this is like your lessons, but I'm going to add a lesson in there for you. And for the people who are maybe feeling like this sport is so like annoying or you're feeling like anxious or angry, who are you competing for? Because for me, it 100% is me. And like you said, when I was in college, oh, I remember because I told you I was doing college and national competitions. And at the time, my mom was the one who was paying for these national competitions. Oh, the one thing she said, even though I love my mom, this one thing she said, oh, like it hurt me. She was like, "You're wasting my money." And I said, girl. and she and she's gonna listen to this episode and say, I never said that. Yes, you did. But it really hurt me. But now for me, it's like I don't care about anyone else's opinion because what if I lost and I'm upset is because I'm upset. If I did an okay competition and everyone is like, "Oh, that was terrible," but I'm thinking, "Wow, like you're progressing, you're doing this, like you're almost there." I don't care what anyone else says. So I think that's one of the lessons that I would say of keeping that love for your sport, like doing it for you and nobody else. So
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's difficult, especially like if we're talking about the college experience, like when you are there on a scholarship, like you can't, it's not about doing it in an arrogant way, like, oh well, I'm just going to do what
yeah,
I can or what I want
oh, that's
to.
true.
No, because at the end of the day, like you are there on a scholarship, like you are there to perform, but just making sure that you don't do it like to your own detriment, like really remembering, yeah, exactly like you said, who you're doing it for and what your boundaries are. And I think
Hmm.
it's difficult in this power dynamic, and this doesn't even relate just to sports, right? It's in your
Mm,
family or with your manager at work, or like whenever there's this power dynamic, is not letting what their opinions of you, or what their opinions are of you, um, dictate how you feel. And
mm-hmm.
yeah, so I just think it was a really damaging time. Like I don't talk about it loads anymore, which is such a shame, because I think from the outside, right, it looks like, oh, May is really successful. She's winning all these medals, she's qualifying for all these meets, but like I I was really um like ready and just waiting for it to be over. And then when I finally did, as I mentioned in the intro, like I did another year um, here in the UK, and I won British University Championships, which was amazing because it was such a big adjust. Like coming back from the US and back to London, like
Mm-hmm.
my indoor season was terrible, and I was really hard on myself at the time. But I think it was just because like you're getting used to coming back to, a completely different training setup, and like readjusting to your different life. And so then, by the outdoor season, to win a national championship, to me, like, blew my mind. Like, I couldn't believe that
Oh.
I was like, I did that. Like, I was so proud of myself. And like through all of the turmoil, like all of the like self-doubt, every time I would get anxious, it was awful. I hated it. And then finally I had something like, I'm not just glad this is over, I'm really happy that I did this. Like, and I'm really proud of myself, and I'm proud of the way that I did it. And that after that was when I walked away, because I felt like at this point I've got everything out of the sport that I wanted to. I didn't feel like I could like run any faster. I felt like I'd like really reached a bit of a plateau. Like I didn't think, sometimes people are still like yet to have their breakthrough, and if they keep working, then one day they'll be able to make it to the pros. I kind of knew that this is this is my ceiling. Um, it wasn't bringing me any, like, the daily grind was not bringing me any joy anymore. So yeah, I decided to walk away, and I took like sort of 3 or 4 months where I didn't run at all. And I thought, you know what, like this, I can't, like, this is not for me. And then I've slowly started again. And this time I'm so sure, like it's really intentional that I'm doing this for me. No one, like I haven't rejoined an athletic club or anything like that. Like I run on my terms.
I love that. Yes. I fence on my terms. No, for
Yeah,
sure, because I think one very, very big part of all sports is the mental side.
yeah,
Because you could be the best athlete, but if you have a really bad um I don't want to say mindset, because it's more than that. It's not just like mindset, like confidence, but like you can have a good physical routine, but I feel like for me, the mental routine is also like super, super, super important. So it's just so beautiful to have this like episode really be about how do you take charge of your results and in your feelings and your expectations, right? Because I never even thought of that. Like for me, I was just like, okay, we're just going to talk about how to fall back in love with your sport, and you're going to just say, training less, or taking more self-care. But it's bigger than that. It's this thing that I think a lot of people, especially when you have a coach that you're so close to, because like you're moving to this new country, right? And you don't, like, you want someone to, I don't want to say to make you feel like comforted, but you like, because you're training with this coach all the time, it is this power dynamic of like, yes, this person wants me to do well, but this person also cares for me, and you want to impress them, and you want them to say,
mm,
oh, this is my best student. When your
yeah.
coach is like, yeah, my girl over there, you're like, yeah, hee hee, that's me. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
no, it's absolutely, it's so true. And I think like mental health is, it's becoming now, I think, part of the conversation around sports, not just
Mm-hmm.
in our sports, but like with Simone Biles, for example, in gymnastics. And I think even, we just had the World Indoor Championships in athletics, and just from some of like I've been following along in the media, and the athletes are very candidly talking about, oh, well, before the meet, my sports psych said this, or like my therapist said this. Like, I feel like it's become a holistic part of an athlete's training. Whereas, and this I think has only happened, obviously, sports psychologists have been around for a long time, but I think there's more like widespread systematic use, not because
Mm-hmm.
like there's a problem, right? Like, I was only referred to a sports psych when I was having these problems. It wasn't ever like a preemptive, or yeah, a preemptive measure, or a step that's taken like, actually the whole team is going to see the sports psych, like,
Yeah.
just as part, but to check in, just to, you know, training your and looking after your mental health is just, as you rightly said, is just as important as the physical. You can, get everything right with the physical, but on race day, if your mind isn't right, then you're not going to perform. So, um, yeah, and I love to see that. And for me, running now is an amazing way to look after my mental health. It's a two-way thing. Like, the running helps with my mental health, and having good mental health helps with the running.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure hopefully people will be able to relate to this. Like, you go out for a run and you get that runner's high, you get those endorphins, like you feel
Not
great.
me.
Really? No?
For running or fencing?
Yeah, running. Like, yeah, for me, running is so good for my mental health. If I've had a stressful day at
No.
work, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, get changed, put my headphones on, and just go for an easy run, it just makes me feel like my problems are not probleming. Like, my
No.
problems
My
kind of melt away,
problems
I get that
start
clarity.
with the run. That's
Okay,
where the
okay.
problems
Yeah, yeah,
start.
yeah. No, my mom also
No.
says that. She's like, I just have never understood the whole running thing. She's like,
Yeah,
from
I
when I start, it's
agree.
horrible. When I end, it's horrible. So I guess it's different things for different people. But
Yeah,
for
true,
me,
true,
yeah,
true.
there is nothing like going on a run. Mm.
Oh, that's beautiful, honestly. But I would love for anyone listening and watching to be able to follow you and your journey, because I love how you document your love again, or kind of like getting back together with your old soulmate running. So I'm gonna put your Instagram, and also there's a beautiful article written about you as well on igniting, you know, that fire inside of you when it comes to being an athlete. Because I think this topic is super important, not just for runners or fencers, but anyone who's competing, especially like you said, when you're just entering college. An American, it doesn't even matter, D1, D2, D3, any kind of like collegiate level athletic program is really rigorous, and it's a big change. Or changing from college to professional is there's a big change. So I'm definitely going to um, I'm going to feel happy posting this, because I know that there are athletes, whether it's today or tomorrow or 6 months ago, you had this feeling. We all go through this, and it's important to have this life lesson. So thank you so much, May.
Yeah. No, thank you. And there's just maybe one more thing that I wanted to add
Yes.
that we didn't really touch on about like being a college athlete, just because I wish someone had told me this, which is that, like, be prepared for when it ends, because it will end. It will
Yes.
end at some point. Whether, like you were saying at the beginning, like, oh, did you have dreams of doing this? Or, like, I feel like a lot of us do have these big dreams, right? We all write it down, like, I want to win Olympic gold, or I want to do this. And I think I never had really thought about, oh, well, what happens the day after I can't run anymore? So, not in
Mm.
like a negative way, but just, and it comes back to detaching your identity and your self-worth. Like, being an athlete obviously is a big part of that, but that's not all that you are. And whether you have to quit because of injury or illness, or you know yeah, well, for whatever reason you decide to walk away,
Yeah.
or whatever reason it is, like, when it comes to an end, it is hard. So, um yeah, and it's okay for it to be hard. I think, like, when I graduated college that summer, I was like pretty depressed. And I think that's not even for athletes, right? Like I think it's a normal thing that no one really talks about. Um, and yeah, to any athletes listening as well, I would just say keep going. You got this 100%.
I love that. Thank you so much, May, for coming on the
Thank
podcast.
you.
They're gonna follow you. They're gonna love you. How like the same energy, guys, that she's had since college. Maybe now that it's more, right? It's more since you stopped running. But no, thank you so much. We're gonna follow you, and thanks for inspiring us to fall back in love with our sport. So on to episode 2.
Thank you so